The Maverick Concerts, which is the oldest running summer chamber music festival, has been running for 100 years, and they were celebrating its centennial. The town needed a footprint of that celebration in the middle of town. So I convinced the Woodstock Artists Association and the Kleiner James Center for the Arts to join in a joint exhibition. And this was a very particular challenge because to do a show about music, audiences may or may not like music. People who like music will go to the concerts and they don't need to be convinced. If you don't happen to be a music goer, particularly of chamber music, I thought, well, I've got a challenge here. What am I going to do with this material? I have programs, I have photographs, I have archival thises and that's, and so it's not the usual kind of thing that I have. So I thought, well, how can I make this show interesting? So I began thinking, who are the major players? And of course, front and center is the fascinating figure of Hervey White, who in 1905 left the Birdcliff colony to found his own colony called the Maverick. And basically, without the Maverick colony and the founding and what went on there, Woodstock would not be as famous as an art colony as it is. Then I thought, so what is this show about? Is it about Woodstock? Is it about music? Is it about the Maverick? And it is the story of an astonishing art colony founded by Hervey White. He was a writer, an editor, a printer, and most of all, he was an astonishing cultural impresario. One of the people that he attracted was the sculptor John Flanagan, who is a very under-recognized person in the art history of the US and of the 20th century. He was one of the masters and leaders of the direct carving movement. There was this huge chestnut tree, and he went at it with an axe, and apparently went at it in a creative fury for 2 or 3 days, and hacked that beautiful horse that you see on the Maverick stage. It also, from the first, was thought to be the symbol, not just of the colony, but of Hervey himself, and of the kind of free, independent life that he craved. You sit in that concert hall, and all of a sudden, you're always in the presence of this monumental figure of a horse. And the more you look at it, the more you become fascinated by it. It's the horse that gave the name to the colony. And it's very fascinating because every time anyone takes pictures of any performance, you always see the shadow of the horse. So I was very interested in making the horse and Flanagan a very important character in the story of the Maverick Concerts. Hervey White was incredibly intelligent and widely cultured, but very unorthodox in every way. He had originally come to Woodstock following Ralph Whitehead, who actually did found the very important Birdcliff Arts and Crafts Colony. So Hervey White's model was a collaborative, free-spirited center where he wanted to attract creative people and let them be free to create. He was a writer, and the first group around him that he attracted were writers, and the second group were musicians. In 1915, he started the Maverick Festivals. His visions were immense, and he wanted to do a cultural festival. And it would start all day. It was like a fair, and everybody was to come in costume, and everybody was invited. Every year, more and more artists came and helped in the production. There were productions of operas. Performances got grander and grander, and astonishingly, there was one, for instance, in which they floated a life-size ship. It was just crazy and wonderful. After the first festival, he made a promise that for the following year they would have a concert hall for, as he called, the highest of all arts, chamber music. The hall itself was created in 1916, 10 years after the founding of the colony. And the first Maverick concert series in the hall was 1916. If you go to the hall now, you see that one of the great unique characteristics of the hall are these extraordinary windows that are set on a diagonal. He said that his knowledge of Gothic cathedrals came in handy. And the other thing that happened that was superb was that the hall turned out to have near-perfect acoustics. The word began to go out that there was this wonderful place to play music in the woods. So the hall was a key factor in addition to Hervey White of why the musicians kept coming. The first musicians had come who basically all came from New York City and from the great orchestras. They also had complete independence and were free to create. Musicians who get very, very highly paid in their world tours will continue to make time to come to Woodstock in the middle of their summer and play one concert just because they love the space, they love the acoustics, they love the hall, and they just feel very strongly about the fact that the Maverick Concert Hall series has been very important historically, 100 years worth.